Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, first item on the agenda, Liz Hanley's here to give us an update on where we are housing-wise with our RFP and Liz?
All right, cool. Just as like a recap to set the stage. So the Community Housing Board, we've been working on putting together an RFP for a scattered site rental development, using 3 lots. The idea being using South Ferry behind the Historic Society for, this is just like the kind of current thinking, right? 6 1-bedroom units, because that's the most that we can zone as of right there. 2 units on North Ferry and 2 units on Manwaring. The Manwaring and the North Ferry units would be 2 to 3 bedrooms. We're kind of still working it out, but more appropriate for a family rather than the smaller units that would be at South Ferry. As a reminder, we're looking at the 10 units as a threshold to be able to receive county funding, which we would be able to bring in about $2 million to offset some of the costs. So that's really like the piece of it that makes it work financially. Okay, so that's kind of like this, just a recap of where we are. And then we have been moving forward on actually putting the RFP document together. Like, how does it go? So the Community Housing Board came up with a draft and sent it to you guys to have some eyes on it. And also we sent it to engineering to get the technical specifications put in, and also to legal, to our counsel, to get some feedback. So we got some feedback from our counsel, and it definitely is changing the way we've been thinking about it a little bit, which is what I'm here to talk to you about today. So the smallest change that I'll start with is that we do need to break up the RFP potentially into basically a couple RFPs.
Excuse me, before you get into the specifics, could you just say what the general project is that the town is going to lease the land and
Oh, yeah,
somebody to come in, you know?
Yeah. Let me describe the project that we're looking at. So what we're looking at is this is town-owned land. So the idea would be is that we are to issue an RFP for someone to come in, build the units, and take future rents as payment, as to kind of help recoup their costs. The town would maintain ownership of the land, and we're working it out with legal, like how that works. Obviously, we would have the first right of refusal, so to be able to purchase those buildings back, because obviously they're on our land, so that makes sense. And also like a look back in the contract of, do we reevaluate our relationship at like the 10-year mark? Is it 15? How does that go into the contract? So that's what we're working hard with legal on right now. The thing that we thought was really cool, and we've been working on kind of imagining this since the spring. We've been talking about it for a while, but really this has kind of really started to flesh out. And the reason that we think that this is so compelling is because what we have as resources is we have this land, right? We do have the 5% transfer tax that is starting to come in, which is amazing. But truthfully, we have about 120,000 in there right now. It's going to take a couple years to get that at a level where we could do something. And so what we think is cool about this is not using any Shelter Island taxpayer money, but already monies that have been made available by the county, and also setting up the developer or the builder or whoever bids on this to be able to build, but also make back their money. So basically, the idea is that the town isn't out of pocket for any of this, and we can have rental units built on our land. And so this RFP is kind of putting together the specifications of how we want the rentals to go, what we want it to look like, just those specific things. So does that kind of answer most of the
Yes.
guidelines? Okay, cool. So we got some legal feedback, the smallest of which is that technically for the contracting, we need to break it into like a general contractor, an electrical contractor, whatever. There's Wick's law that is in New York State, so that was like not something that we were super cognizant of. So council's helping us just kind of separate those out, little things, but definitely different than we're thinking. Now, the big thing, which is the thing I'm here to talk to you about today, is how we as a community housing board had really imagined this as that we would put out a RFP for design and build, right? That was really how we had kind of had our imagining of it. And something that we learned last week in our conversations with council is with New York State law, we cannot do design and build together. Right? So you can imagine the surprise. So I walked out of that and I thought, well,
That's inefficient.
okay, well, what are we gonna do about that? So I was sitting after the meeting and I remembered a conversation that I had had with another one of our community housing board members, David Doyle, as we were putting together the financial modeling. David works in housing on a national scale for his job and livelihood. He's been an amazing asset. And he had mentioned when we were talking about the modeling, he had said, oh, maybe what we should do is we should just purchase designs. He said it would probably be the most efficient way monetarily to do that. And so that kind of stuck in my head. So after this conversation with council, I called David and I said, I kind of shut you down that day because we had talked about it being like a design and build proposition. So I didn't really want to know that wasn't how we were thinking about it. But tell me more about that, because I started to kind of dig into, okay, so then we'd have to hire an architect and RFP for the thing, and then deciding who it was, and then the designs. And first of all, we would have to pay for it out of the fund, which we can do. We have money, but pretty expensive proposition. And also it's going to take quite a while. So I went to David and he said, Liz, I think this is actually a blessing because I think that this could be efficient both monetarily and also in terms of time to look at pre-designed multifamily units. Obviously, we would need to have them signed off by our building department, but once we've made the decision, then we would already have the technical specifications and it would just be, we could change we want shingle siding, we don't want we could like kind of juice it a little bit, but it would just be kind of done, right? And the good news is instead of, a cost that would be in the tens of thousands and upwards for design, this would kind of come in about $1,000 or $2,000 each design. So I'm an accountant, that I like that. That means that there's money left over to do other stuff. And so so I just wanted to kind of come and just immediately kind of tell the board that we've kind of taken a different change in our thinking. So David actually put together a PowerPoint for us to kind of go through just so I can kind of show you some of our imaginings. Now I am going to just tell you that one of the things he was very adamant about, and one of the things that has been in our discussions, is talking about that we want to look at designs that are not just multifamily, but known in the industry as build to rent. So they're specifically designed to be rental properties. So what does that mean? Big picture that they have larger staircases, right? So you can get couches and stuff like that up and down, right? Which is going to be happening a little bit more often. You are going to see, just kind of getting into the weeds a little bit, you'll see utility panels on the outside of the house so that basically people don't need to access the units to be able to do maintenance. So just some tweaks in the design, but that's what we would be looking at. Now, he is actually going to a conference the week before our next community housing board meeting, which I encourage you to tune in, on this exact subject of build to rent, and expects to have a wider selection of things for us to look at. But I asked him to put together today some things so you can kind of see what we're thinking about. And so I'm going to ask you to just kind of put up the slideshow. God bless him. He loves a PowerPoint and I love him. All right, so, and then the next slide, so he just did kind of an overview, and I'll share this with the board. It's a newer concept. There's a bunch of built to rent homes built to date, there's a bunch of purpose-built designs, standardized designs. It can also be, they are designed to be economical, right? So with standard appliance sizes, standard window sizing, all these kind of things that maybe we don't think about, but with the margins being so thin and inflation in building materials being so high, these are all really important considerations. Potential, like obviously a lot of savings over an architectural design. And also with like kind of the amount of money that you'd be able to save by using a firm that just does this and doing a pre-designed thing, we would be able to potentially have additional monies left over to do, if we wanted to do outdoor design or solar panels or, whatever the community or this board decides, we might have some extra cash. Designed with the understanding that we have move in and move outs, fewer doors, wider hallways, high quality flooring. Those kinds of things are all kind of taken into sign. And then exterior access. So I also had him put together just a couple of designs so that, because I know he said it to me and then I said, do you want to move into the next slide? I was just like, well, what exactly are we talking about? Like, is this even plausible? So he pulled together a couple different things. So this is a 2-unit, 1-bedroom design. And I was like, okay, that with a shingle, that could work. This is another one. I don't know if I like the rock facing, but that's just aesthetic for me. But something like this would totally work, maybe with a different front on it. But the living looks good. Similar, this is a 2-unit, 2-bedroom design. He's also going to give us a couple 2-story options. And then I think we can see the next one, 3-bedroom, 2 stories.
Oh, wow, cute.
So you could put an ADU on this one.
Finally a roof pitch I can get behind.
Yeah, right? Exactly. So I just wanted to kind of just show these to you because I know when he said it to me, I don't know what I was imagining, but it wasn't this. But I looked at some of these and I thought, oh, well, like put a little shingle on it. And, I was like, I could see these fitting in. So like I said, I just really wanted to bring this kind of turn new information that we learned and kind of turn in our thinking. So just so you know what we as a board are working on and considering, we're going to be talking through some actual designs and more largely about this on our community housing board meeting, not this weekend, but not this week, Thursday, but next. And it's my expectation that we'll probably have additional meetings with the design subcommittee. So you can be looking for us to be probably bringing forward some designs. The other thing that I know we're going to talk about in committee and I wanted to put out to this board is it's obviously, well, maybe not obviously, but it's our intention to be as transparent and open to public feedback and, just everybody knows what's going on. So if you have any ideas for us about how to just kind of involve or highlight this process to the public, we're super open to it.
Christina, do we have closer, do we know when we're actually going to have the ability to send out emails to people who want to be kept informed as to the going-ons? February, so it's a little bit of a delay, but that's my first thing, is like, we want to be able to send every committee's agenda out in a timely manner to people who care about a topic or many topics, so that they know when the next meeting is, either Zoom in or to. And I would also flood the zone every time you have a meeting coming up, maybe starting 3 or 4 days beforehand on the social.
Yeah.
Because there are people who are tuning into that. Who's the fuck on?
Catherine.
I just lose track all the time.
Yeah.
She could do that for you. And and I think that's really important because it's not like you've been doing your work under a rock.
No,
However, there's been a bit of public discussion about how we've got to get started on affordable housing, and I'm like, well, what do you think's been happening with the Dana Housing
we're halfway
Board
there.
since they worked on the plan?
Yeah.
And so since February, we almost are complete in sort of nailing down 11 ADUs. Partially or 12 financed.
Two more in the works, so we're almost at
Financed
14.
by CDCLI grant gotten from the state government, and working on the RFP, and just in general, moving forward, which is what you've been doing.
Yeah, I mean, you know, obviously we want to, this is like a big consideration. It's a big project to embark on, so we want to move quickly, but we also want to move thoughtfully.
And there's other governmental agencies involved that will impede, or, you know, that's probably is too strong a word, but will sort of impact your progress, which is the health department. I mean, and, you know, Suffolk County is still, you know, struggling a little bit from its shutdown of its computer space, et cetera. So I just wanted out there that this, the Community Housing Board has worked hard, diligently, and smartly for at least the past 14 months.
Yeah.
I'll just put that time frame on it.
We're really out there trying.
Yeah.
And I guess, like I said, I just want to like invite you guys to tune in, and just so you know it's on the agenda, and any members of the public who are curious about this. I mean, for me, I actually thought it was really exciting to, instead of to just actually literally be able to go like, oh, a 2-story? Oh, I like that roof pitch. Or like, I think that this would work. You know what I mean? Like it's exciting to be able to actually get to part of the design. And I think for us, like the imagining of the actual like physicality of it is cool.
Yeah.
And anyway, so like I said,
I think it was a blessing in disguise, the fact that, you know, the design and build was separated out.
yeah,
I think, you know, from design, there's so much out there. You're not reinventing the wheel.
Yeah.
There's a ton of the stuff that's out there that's very pleasing, and what might fit at the highway barn may not fit, you know, at Man Waring or some
Yeah.
other place. So my one question on when it goes out, and you mentioned the 4 different sites today.
yeah.
Three
Yeah.
sites today. Would one builder or multiple builders, and would they be from the island, or would this go out
Great
across?
question. So the, it would be one builder that would build on all this, that would put in a proposal. Obviously, I don't know what they would do. There's some.
Make it worth their while.
Yeah, because that has been, I will say, the heart of what David Doyle, and I'm gonna give him most of the credit for it, because he's amazing. But we've been working, the economics of this.
Yes.
Were the hardest thing to make work.
Right.
So the scale of it, being able
Yes.
to get into 10 makes the quantities, economies of scale, and makes this grant possible, like, and that was the key to make it work. Because in 2s and like a 3 or whatever, we
Right.
just, I mean, we did those numbers every way you could do them, and I was like, I couldn't, who would bid on something where they would lose money?
Yeah, first.
They have to be a dummy. So, yeah, and so, once we have this and we get to the end of the process, what we would be able to do is then obviously drop the design and the technical specifications, which are available because someone's already written them, so that's cool, into the RFP, and then be able to bring the RFP, put the RFP out and start the process. So, you know, it would be open to people on the contractors and builders on the island and off island. And then we would just kind of choose the best candidate, right?
I actually see it as being a good thing, because if you had done design and build as part of the RFP, you would have gotten so many different concepts, different designs, different price points, because it
compare.
completely depends on the design. So it's really hard to compare them. So if you're going out with a standard, here's our design, this is what we're putting the RFP out for, you're gonna get easily comparable results.
Right, and what we're
RFP.
really asking them to be, we're asking them to be good builders and good managers, rather than being good designers, good builders, and good managers, which is a lot.
So that's, I mean, I don't know if that was clear, or, just maybe to people who are new to the topic, that it's an RFP for build and manage.
Yeah,
Yeah, the town doesn't want to be in the
Right.
property management business.
yeah, although we will be putting obviously forward guidelines,
Yes.
for,
Oh, yeah.
things have to be well maintained and
Right.
like those kinds of things. So we're building that into the RFP, kind of some of our standards.
Yeah.
Affordable rents, those,
Yeah.
those
Yeah.
kinds of, there's
Those details.
the color between them. Yeah.
Okay, there's a couple things.
Yeah.
One, I just want to make sure that we publicly thank the housing board, because I know how involved everybody's been in it. And more so you specifically, because you are the driving force for this.
Oh, thanks.
But with that said, can you give us an update or just the status on the ADUs process?
Yeah, absolutely. So we had an update meeting with CDCLI last Wednesday. What is time? And so we have, it looks like, I'm remembering, we have 12 through with preliminary approvals. So basically they're approved, the zoning's right, they are cleared through the CDCLI financial process. We have 2 more applications that are being evaluated right now that look good. So for a total of potential 14 out of 16, so we're really pleased about that. We have 6 moving forward to their second site visit, so we expect to be putting in building applications, and they're starting to work with the builders and stuff like that on actual design in the next month or so.
Wow.
So we're pretty excited. Their team has been really awesome to work with. I also just want to highlight the participation and amazing work by Peter McCracken
Oh, great.
on our board, who joins me for every single one of these calls and has just been an invaluable asset, like telling us, he knows every lot, and he's like, oh, well, da-da-da-da-da, well, no, I mean, well, she could do her basement, but she did it, so like, it's like him and their builder, and then me and like Casey just like kind of answering questions on the side, but he has been really huge. Oh, and then one other update that we are, Bill Maestro on our board has also been helping to interview potential outside counsel to help us with some of the RFPs. So we have some interviews set up this week, and that's something we'll also be bringing to the board.
Do you get a feel when you meet with the CDC, where we stand compared to everybody else in the?
We're killing it.
Yeah,
Just winning a stand.
okay.
Yes.
Yeah, no, we are like probably the community that has the most in. But also we've been so on fire about it. And I think it just really aligns with what the community told us, which was like, hey, we know we want housing, we're really interested in ADUs. And so I just feel like we're really,
Right.
like, it's like a perfect storm.
I think also that it dovetails. I know we talk all the time about working families and supporting a year-round population so that we support the school or the volunteer services.
Yeah.
I get that. But can you give us any sense of how this ADU program has helped to seniors? Are any seniors involved in?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, I don't have the numbers in front of
Yeah.
me, but I would say probably about half of our applicants are seniors.
See, this is good, right? And just in case, again, people forgot, if you're a senior who owns your home and you build an ADU, you don't have to just rent the ADU out. You can go into the ADU, rent your home, and help stay on Shelter Island in a much easier to manage circumstance.
Yeah, so I think that what this is gonna provide, especially, and obviously I can't like disclose names and stuff like that, but we do have some seniors and some young families
Yeah,
that are applicants, and we're really excited to help them have some additional household income, which we hope will just like really help anchor them
Yeah.
here into the community.
It's a win-win.
Do you, I know you don't have the numbers in front of you, but
Yeah.
do you have an idea of how many of these are like conversions of existing spaces?
That is still
and-
that's still
Okay.
absolutely in play. So
Yeah.
once we start, we're in that next, coming up on that next phase where they're doing the second meetings with like literally putting together plans and
Right.
stuff like that. So I will have information on the first round that'll go into building applications here soon, but maybe in the next month.
Okay.
So a lot of it is just kind of seeing what's appropriate. for where they are, right? So some folks can only do basement conversions, some people are doing ADUs, or they're, like there's everything that you can imagine, we are seeing.
Yeah.
So it's like a very bespoke approach based on.
There's one more question for you, please. With the whole design process, so if you get the RFPs, what would you publicize them and have community input on, what they are? How do you?
The RFPs?
On the actual designs?
On the designs.
On the design, yeah, that's what I'm that's why I'm here and talking about it publicly, is saying like, hey, we're gonna start talking about designs. If you're interested, you wanna see, you have and that's why I wanted to kind of solicit any ideas that you guys as a board might have as to just have it involve the public more in just kind of seeing what our process is.
Maybe we could task Stephen with checking with the enabling legislation for the transfer tax as to whether or not some public outreach expense, such as a full-page ad in the Reporter, come to this meeting if you care about community housing design. Would that be covered? Could we use 5% money, transfer money for that? So Stephen.
0.5%, by the way.
Yeah.
5%, sorry.
Yeah, or we might even have a little bit left in our budget, so I'm happy to
Yeah.
Right.
look at that. But yeah, we really want like I said, we really want to do this and just having everybody kind of see what we're working on. So, because what I don't want is like for the RP to come, we'll go, hey, what the heck is this? And be like, it's the thing that we've been talking about for months. Like, how do you feel about shingles? Like, or do you like I don't know.
Standing seam roof.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank
I'm
you.
gonna be back to
Thanks,
work.
Liz. Thank you very much.
Yeah, of course.
Thank you for all you
You've
do.
done a great job.
Yeah. Well,
And your committee, and the committee.
yeah, no, my committee is amazing. I'm so lucky to have such a really good folks. All right, have a great day.
A lot of hard
Thank you,
work.
Liz.
Greatly appreciated.
Okay, next on the agenda, for Conic Estuary, Jim is, the government liaison for the East End Supervisors and Mayors to the PEP. He's gonna give us his report on the meeting they had last week.
So you don't take any notes. Thanks for your notes.
Thank you.
All right, yeah. All right.
20 minutes.
Yes.
You have them on a timer, do you?
So the meeting was held a couple weeks ago on October 18th, 11 o'clock here in Sound Town Hall. It was, we invited both the Conic Estuary Partnership and the New York State Sea Grant to attend, and they made a presentation. Basically, it was on these three topics: coastal resilience, a nature-based solution, critical lands protection strategy, which is a new strategy on how to protect these lands, and the tools that they offer to actually, they already have them online for us, and shoreline adaptation initiatives. So what I wanted to do very briefly, a lot of people ask me, who is the PEP? The PEP is composed of the 5 East End towns and the town of North Haven. It also, so there's 6 of us, 6 major players. There are also 10 villages, Deering Harbor being one of them. The village of Greenport, North Haven, Sag Harbor, village of East Hampton, Sagaponic, village of Southampton, village of West Hampton Beach, West Hampton Dunes, and Quogue. They're all part of PEP. There are 9 trustees that are part of it, which represent most of those different townships and villages. There are 88 organizations that are part of this partnership. 88 different organizations. I'm just going to read off a couple. The Association of National Estuary Program, the Atlantic States Marine Fisher Commission, the Citizens Campaign for the Environment, Dark Skies, Defend H2O, Hofstra University, Long Island Aquarium, Long Island Clean Water Partnership, Long Island Commission for Aquifer Protection, Long Island Farm Bureau, Long Island Invasive Species Management Area, Long Island Pine Barrens, National Audubon Society, New York State Sea Grant, New York State Assembly Fred Thiel, Peconic Baykeepers, Peconic Land Trust, Preserve at Plum Island Coalition, Save the Sounds, Shinnecock Nation is represented. Stony Brook University obviously is a big partner. Suffolk County Community College also is a fairly big partner. Al Krupski, Bridget Fleming, the Nature Conservancy, the United States Environmental Protection Agency, the United States Fish and Wildlife Service. Those are just a small handful of the 88 members of this partnership. And you can ask, who is the New York State Sea Grant? The New York State Sea Grant's been around for 52 years, since 1971. They really cover the entire state of New York, including Great Lakes. So Lake Erie is part of New York State. Lake Ontario, obviously, the Southern Shore is part of New York State. The entire Hudson Valley is part of it. Long Island Sound is part of it. And of course, the mouth of New York Harbor is part of it, as well as the Peconic Estuary Partnership, Peconic Estuary itself. The New York State Sea Grant is in cooperation with Cornell University and the State University of New York. It's one of 34 university-based programs. Through New York State Sea Grant efforts, the combined talents of university scientists, extensive specialists help develop and transfer science-based information to many coastal user groups, such as businesses and industries, federal, state, and local government decision makers, agency managers, educators, the media, and the public interest. So that's a little bit about the two organizations. Next slide. And as I said, the Peconic Estuary Partnership, the CCMP, better known as the Comprehensive Conservation Management Plan, has four major goals. This meeting was about goal number 2. Goal number 1, I just kind of told you what the partnerships are like. They're very strong, they're very extensive. Goal number 3 is on clean water. Goal number 4 is on healthy ecosystems with diverse wildlife. But goal number 2 is what we focused on: resilient communities prepared for climate change. That's the whole idea of this meeting. Okay, next one. So what we basically discussed was our focus was to discuss some coastal resilient initiatives and help us find proper town folks, including here on Shelter Island, to recruit to our core assessment group. We are looking for town employees involved in the permitting process for shoreline adaptation within Shelter Island Township. So that's the mission, and we have to come up with name or names of people that will sit on that commission. Next slide, please. Obviously, what we had in attendance for this meeting was Joyce Novak, who was in charge of the PEP, Jade, she comes from PEP, and Kathleen Fallon, who's from Sea Grant. I was in attendance. Meg Larson represented the town board. Ian McDonald represented the
Planning board.
Planning board, excuse me. Howard Johansson, the CAC. James Eklund represented the WQI and the WMAC. Greg Toner represented WAC. Brian Sherman represented Highway and Public Works, and Joe Fenora represented Town Engineers. And on Zoom, we had Alice, who represented the Monadnock Creek Group, and Al Loretto, who serves on the WMAC and is the town liaison for dredging with Suffolk County Public Works. Those are the people in attendance. Next slide, please. So what's the role these were my discussion notes. A lot of the discussion started with a lot of us talking about the lack of cooperation that we're getting from the New York State DEC, that things are not being handled in a timely fashion. And when there's an amendment to an application, a slight change, like at Condon Creek, it goes to the bottom of the pile again, and it starts to wake its way back up. And you got to wait another 6 or 8 months for somebody to review that. What basically Joyce was saying is she hears that same criticism from every town she's visited. So we talked about, what this thing is about is selling our 5 East End towns and Brookhaven on getting away from hardening of the shorelines and getting into more living natural shorelines and coming up with important smart management practices and educational opportunities for both municipalities and individual homeowners aimed at promoting nature-based solutions which address sea level rise and climate change. They also looked at site suitability tools, which focus on wave action, erosion, and other factors impacting our shorelines. Understanding the history of a shoreline is extremely important. Being able to look at the old photos, I remember looking at the old photos from Real Point, and just being able to see photos that are now 80, 90 years old, and seeing the different configuration of how that spit has changed is pretty remarkable. Meg came up with a great solution at the end. Meg recognized the importance of including these initiatives in developing the Shelter Island Comprehensive Plan, and she talked about taking some of these things and integrating them into the comprehensive plan. One of the other things that we talked about at the very end of the meeting, I haven't mentioned this to the board before, is a shared resource. Hiring somebody here on the East End that specializes is an environmental expert, and sharing that person with the 5 East End towns. So it wouldn't be a large, responsibility that we would have to take, but it would be a resource person. So if we wanted to go out and look at Real Point, or we wanted to go out and look at Schaumburg Point or any Shell Beach or any of the shoreline areas, this would be somebody who has specialized training and being able to make good judgments on that. Next slide, please. In terms of the selection of the representative, again, that's all part of the core assessment group. A workshop is being planned for January 2024. So we have to get a name to PEP of who our representative would be for that committee. Next slide, please. In terms of the introduction, climate change impacts, sea level rise, we need to be strategic and adapting to these realities. PEP has developed what's called the Critical Lands Protection Strategy, better known as CLAPS, in order to inform and develop land acquisition priorities and reach land protection goals. Protecting land not only provides safe haven for wildlife species, it also does the following. Number one, wetlands habitats the room to migrate inland. So with rising sea levels, we have to realize that these wetlands are coming in towards into the island. Number two, living shoreline project opportunities that strengthen our shores from storm surges while also providing open access to our bays. Now, how do we strengthen these shorelines without using hard measures to do so? Number three, protecting our groundwater from unwanted pollution and for better handling flooding as the water table rises. The key elements in the town's mitigation plan, by the way, is the following. The first priority I think that we've developed, and Chief Reed has been instrumental in this, is working with the two ferry companies to work on the plazas and the ramps in order to elevate them so that during emergencies, we can get people on and off the island, particularly an ambulance. Number two, road racing projects. I just went by, coming up to the meeting just 10 minutes, a little bit ago, and you can see that the water's right at the edge of West Neck. It's right there. It's been there for the last 3 or 4 days. It's gone right to the edge of the road. The condition is getting worse. It's becoming more frequent. I realized we had a full moon, and I realized we had a pressure system that came through, weather system that came through. But we have identified a number of roads that need to be raised. And by the way, a lot of this involves, and we have it in the budget, as you'll see tonight when we go through the budget. A lot of it is put in there for design work. We have to be able to put design work in to be able to be eligible for grant monies in order to secure grant monies to be able to actually execute these plans. Third thing is road runoff projects. We have to do a better job at controlling the runoff of water on our roadways. Number four is the location of catch basins, the adding of catch basins in key locations. And number five, which is very, very important, wetlands protection. And that has to do with us spending much more time looking into the town code on how can we better protect our wetlands. And number 6 is talking with greater emphasis, nearshore development protection. So we know that in a place like Montauk, for instance, all the businesses that were lying down on the beach, which they gave incentives for them to move to higher ground, rather than to, and it was interesting, Jerry just pointed the same article out, it was out in Newsday just this past week, about them saying no to Fire Island, the Army Corps. The Army Corps cannot work fast enough. Mother Nature is winning the battle. Yeah, I mean, you could dredge, and we see that at Real Point. We don't have to go to Fire Island. We know in 1 year time, whatever was done in January, by the end of January to fix Real Point, will be undone the following year through storms. And we haven't had a hurricane or a major storm, but it just piecemeal, a little bit at a time. That wave action is real. So how do you protect that habitat? And there are natural ways to do that without putting in, a lot of hardcore stuff. Next slide, please. This is the Peconic Estuary Program Climate Vulnerability Assessment and Action Plan, and this is what they're looking to focus in on. Next slide, please. So what they want to do is they want to bring the diverse stakeholders together to address priority issues in the Peconic Estuary watershed through monitoring, research, collaboration, and education. PEP is managed according to the CCMP, which promotes a holistic approach to restoring, improving, maintaining, and protecting the Peconic Estuary, its watershed, and the waters inside Peconic Bay. The priority of the management tools are topics like they address brown tides, nutrient inputs, habitat and living resources, pathogens, toxic pollutants, critical lands protection. These topics, plus the need for public education and outreach, form the basis for the CCMP action plans. And there are action plans throughout the entire management plan. So the CCMP also establishes a management conference consisting of a policy committee, a management committee, a citizens advisory committee, which is important, that gets citizen input on this, technical advisory committee, and local government committee, which I happen to be the chairman of the last 2 years. Next slide, please. Critical lands protection strategy. Climate change presents new challenges for the Peconic Estuary. To create a framework for targeting land protection, management, and restoration in the face of climate change, PEP has updated CLAPS criteria and incorporated the most current climate resilience and natural resources data. Well, they did this back in the early 2000s, around 2003. This is 20 years later. So all the projections that they had for 2020 have come to fruition, but they're starting to update their forecast moving forward. What is the, next slide, please. What is the answer to making these decisions? The Critical Lands Protection Strategy Criteria and Ranking Tool. This is a tool that assigns a priority score to individual parcels of land based on how they meet or do not meet our carefully selected criteria. A sample question might be, is this parcel of land located in an area that will become inundated under future sea level rise projections? Does this parcel of land contain or will contain freshwater or tidal wetlands? And there's a bunch of criteria that are down there that you can look through online. Next slide, please. The climate-based CLAPS criteria and ranking tool. This is a new CLAPS screening criteria developed, and it prioritizes the process of accounting and anticipated changes in coastal conditions related to climate change. Again, it's been updated since 2003. Citizens Advisory Group has taken a strong look at this along with the Technical Advisory Committee. They are developing and incorporating spatial mapping, which is available, which has CLAPS criteria data sets to develop measurable land protection goals. So we have to do that here on this island. We have to literally walk the shorelines of Shelter Island and look at critical lands that need better protection and how best to protect them. This hopefully will help us get to that end, not just, not just raising roads and ferry terminals, but actually working on our shorelines themselves. They've organized this criteria, next slide please, into 3 groups or classes. Class 1 is protecting land that currently supports or is predicted to support in the future natural habitat. Class number 2 is identifying land that would be submerged due to sea rise so that they may be considered for acquisition, allowing for wetlands migration, restoration, or creation. Class number 3, protecting groundwater and identifying land that may flood from rising water tables. Prioritizing protection of these areas can reduce discharges of pollutants, minimize damage from flooding, and prevent saltwater intrusion into the water table. So they fall into one of those 3 categories. Next slide, please. Critical lands protection. So again, this is representing a new challenge, targeting land protection, management, restoration in the face of climate change. And they use these 5 priorities. Number 1, their proximity to the shoreline. Obviously, the closer to the shoreline, the higher the priority. Number 2, the location in a nitrogen impaired subwatershed. Number 3, the presence of wetlands on already existing there. Number 4, their relative size to other protected lands. We're talking about a 1-acre parcel, we're talking about a 15-acre parcel. Obviously, the bigger, the more intriguing it is. And finally, the other thing, which is very important, is the potential to aggregate multiple adjacent preserved parcels. So if we already own some, waterfront, getting those parcels, and I'm thinking down at Dickerson Creek, for instance, we have the one side of the creek, and then we were looking at they were looking at the land on the other side. That would be a perfect, a high priority when it comes to critical lands protection. That's a good example of it. Okay, next slide, please. So if you look at sea level rise and you look at what they evaluated on, this was the baseline used in 2000 to 2004. If you look at the middle column, by 2020, they predicted a 6-inch rise in sea level from 2000 to 2020. CAP is now looking for 2050. They went to high median because they believe that sea rise is going to accelerate. They're looking at 21 inches. In 2100, they're looking at a medium-high range of a little under 4 feet, 47 inches. And that's pretty scary stuff. Because if you look at the maps, they have the maps out for 2020, 2050, 2080, and 2100. And you take a look at the flood map, the flood zones, areas on the South Shore and the North Fork, including Shelter Island. An example would be Little Ram Island, as
Becomes an island.
becomes an island.
Yeah.
Mishomic Point is no longer. Maybe, in fact, if you're out there now, during high tides, it's difficult to get out to Mishomic Point. There's just one little area left there. But that's going to be underwater. A perfect example of sea rise, for people that don't believe it, is, I mentioned Mishomic, is you walk out to Bass Creek, the bridge is gone. Now, that bridge had been there for decades. The bridge is gone, why? Because of sea rise. Sea rise actually tore the bridge down. If you take a look at, they redid the Green Trail. Why did they redo the Green Trail? Because during the Green Trail, when you're walking out to the meadow, and it took you by those wetlands, that bridge no longer exists because that's underwater. So sea level rise is real. And Mishomic has made those adaptations even in their hiking trails to cover sea level rise.
So Jim, is the 6-inch projection from 2023, from 2003, accurate?
It is accurate, yes.
Wow.
It is accurate. Yeah. And the scary part of it is if it does start to accelerate and they get away from the medium range, and there's a big difference between 34 inches and, you're talking about a little under 3 feet versus a little under, an inch under 4 feet by 2100. Either way, take the medium or take the medium high, 3 to 4 feet rise in elevation, you know, you're not going to get to Orient Point. Orient Point is going to be, you know, the causeways going out there are going to be underwater. If you turn to the next slide, I'll show you a little bit here. It's in color. If you bring it up, I tried to, you know, you can actually, can you zoom in on that at all, like for Shelter Island at all? But it gives you, it shows you, by the way, this graphic shows you all of the Peconic.
Jenny, can you make this bigger? Please?
Yeah, I tried to do that myself. That's okay.
No rush. So this is medium scenario, 6 inches, right?
Yes,
Jim?
this is based on the 6 inches, yes. So if you look at Shelter Island now, you know, over in here,
The cost,
this is Mishomic Point out here. You know, this is Mishomic Point. This is all parts of Mishomic in here that are basically underwater. If you take a look down at Shell Beach, Shell Beach is in a bit of trouble here. You take a look at West Neck Bay, up above, you can see that water right alongside of Hilo when you walk in, that's all underwater.
The causeway is really, yeah.
The causeway's in trouble right there, both causeways actually. So there's.
in Real Point.
And Real Point, yes.
Wow, and that's just 6 inches is what you're saying.
Yeah, and I think what you're gonna start to see based on these projections is there's not enough money, there's not enough time, there's not enough resources to do what the Army Corps, and that's why we redesigned our grant application back in. Joe and I sat down and we based it more on habitat and navigation, you know, safe navigation in and out of the channel than we did on, you know, the assets that were inside the harbor. But it's interesting. So, by the way, if you go online on PEP, you can get this projection for 2050, 2080, and for 2100. When you see the one on 2100, I don't want to demoralize you, it's not good. It's not good. I mean, for those people that are thinking about building in these areas, we have to really put a hard stop on it. Okay, next slide, please. In terms of PEP climate vulnerability, they break them up into several groups. The first is on habitat protection, protecting buffers for migration and recharge, protecting existing habitat and identifying areas for reclamation of habitat migration and restoration, prioritizing natural engineering resilience and sustainable infrastructure. Then it breaks it down to water quality protection, and you could kind of read through those. Next slide. This is basically all online. Maintenance and enhancement of species diversity, talks about promoting biodiversity, reintroduction of native species, controlling of non-native or invasive species, groundwater protection. You can see it right there. And then the last two is based on recreational opportunities on the next slide. Protecting recreational access, promoting and protecting recreational activities. And then it talks about sustainable fisheries, protecting and enhancing habitat and food sources, promoting sustainability through public education. And then it talks about protection strategies for renewal and environmental infrastructure on the next one. One, projects for living shorelines, which is something that we really have to really take a hard look at. Promoting awareness through public education, even for individual homeowners, and cultural resources, protecting and providing cultural resources, and promoting and protecting cultural activities. The next slide, I want to zip through that because I would like to spend just a little bit of time on this slide here. I know it's in small print, it's a little hard to read. But these are examples on table 7 of risk assessment, potential effects of climate stressors and on habitat protection goals. First one is on sea level rise. Just take the first two. Sea level rise may flood drowned wetlands. If wetlands are not able to migrate, sea level rise could lead to wetland habitat loss. You can't afford that. Wetlands provide an important function. They have to be able to migrate. Sea level rise will increase eelgrass bed depths. So as the water gets deeper, eelgrass lives very nicely at 2 feet, 3 feet below water. But if you start getting 4 or 5 feet below water, it's less successful. So that's something that you have to think about even in terms of eelgrass. Finally, on the bottom there, it says sea level rise may increase saltwater intrusion. Obviously, we know that. It not may, it does. Warmer waters may decrease eelgrass viability. Warmer waters may affect wetland viability. Warmer waters may change patterns and risk at HABs, harmful algae bloom areas. Rising groundwater tables. Rising groundwater may lead to habitat changes and ponding, as we see like over in West Neck. If you ever gone through that, back of West Neck back there, through that white little gate and walk back there, it's all ponding in there. It never dries. It's just a series of ponds in there. That's why it floods on Branda right in that area. The water table is so high. And then you see warmer atmospheres changes. Warmer atmosphere may change the seasons and may change plant ranges and affecting habitats. More frequent and intense storms, we know that more frequent and intense storms will increase erosion on the shoreline and nearshore habitats. Increased storm frequency and intensity of storms will lead to more stormwater runoff. So there's a lot of things that go on here. And the next slide, obviously they're talking about increased times of drought, which when it rains, it will pour, but then there will be times where you go weeks and weeks, and probably months without rain, because you're getting these water systems coming through across the country. So it may increase drought, decrease river flows. And finally, the ocean acidification is another consideration that they look at, and its impact on shellfish, fish in general, and other species that serve the habitat. Next slide. We only have a couple left here. There are some interactive maps. So municipalities, land stewards, and decision makers alike can use this tool to help decide which lands to acquire, evaluate which climate adaptation strategy is appropriate. This tool will help us make land management decisions that will matter for habitat and water quality protection now and in the future. That's why that idea of the 5 East End towns having somebody who specializes in this, someone with strong scientific background, in this area would be a great tool for the town to literally be able to take parts of the town, walk the shorelines, and be able to make these kinds of judgments for the future. The bottom line is on the next slide. If we can prioritize the parcels of land that will protect the greatest potential for protecting and preserving the health of the estuary, then we can move forward in making informed decisions about our land, building a cleaner, more resilient future. So that's basically what the charge is. That's what the committee will put together, and starting in January, and hopefully they will be able to accomplish some of this stuff. Does anybody have any questions from the audience or?
Yeah, the one question that I wrote down, Jim, was, and I really don't understand, is why would we consider acquisition of land that's potentially going to be submerged? I mean, if it's going to become wetlands, what's the reason to buy it?
So it doesn't get hardened.
Yes, I mean, I think you're trying to avoid the hardening. That wetland, you're, by acquiring it and acquiring surrounding properties, like on larger parcels, you're allowing the wetlands to move more freely inland. And now that's, they're going to be.
That's going to happen naturally, so why would we need to?
Because
in other words, it's not going to be able to build on it.
Well, those are the ones you would acquire.
Yeah.
I mean, it is buildable, and if anybody builds a house, would want to put a revetment in or a bulkhead or something to that, now I have property to save. And I think that's the reason do
There are a
that.
few properties like that I can think of.
So
There's one on West Neck, there's one actually down by Dickerson Creek, there's one by.
How about the high-low application that came in behind the White House, that's actually in a floodplain?
Yeah,
And when you see these high tides, so not out, I don't know if I go in that road to
Right.
Hilo, but that's swamp. I want to put a house on there, a fairly expensive house, but they're gonna put it on island. So are we a community that want, if you go down to Maryland or Delaware, look at all the.
Yeah.
And go on Long Island, in the South Shore, see all the houses they have on pilings. Are they gonna stay, if the ocean comes up 3 to 4 feet and the wave action becomes more intense and the hurricane, so a class 3 or a class 4 is more probable than a class 1 or 2 because the waters are warmer. So obviously they're gonna be more intense storms that come north. Mother Nature's gonna do what Mother Nature's gonna do. When you think about Lower Manhattan, and you think about what Sandy did in terms of the billions, if not trillions of dollars worth of damage in Lower Manhattan to everything that's underground in New York, including not only the subways and mass transit, but the sewer systems, and the pipes and the electricals. And it's people have to start thinking differently. Because unless we can reverse or stop, I don't think you're going to stop. I think you first have to slow down climate change. And then when you start to see what works in terms of slowing climate change down, so these predictions are not met. Now that sea rise isn't as fast as you think, that the polar ice caps are not melting as fast as they are, then you can begin to start to think about how you can turn the corner and maybe bring things back to some semblance of order. But it's a difficult assignment. It obviously needs worldwide cooperation. We can do all we want here in the United States, and there's still arguments even at the federal level about, using, gasoline products and fossil fuels versus wind and sun and other things that, are we moving too fast? Are we not moving fast enough? I mean, if you take polls on people, I don't think many people anymore, at least here on Shelter Island, don't admit to the fact that climate change is real. Now, some say some of these predictions are way overrated, and some will say, but it is real. I mean, the weather systems have changed. The flooding is more pronounced. The damage to the shoreline is greater. We're losing beaches. We're losing property. Mashonack is constantly, because Mashonack has no protection. So certain parts of Mashonack used to be a road that went out to Mashonack Point. It no longer exists. Because that the wave action just came in and took that road out. And that road, was in 20 feet from the edge of the cliff. But that's all come back. We see the same thing, the millions and millions and millions of dollars to protect the Montauk Lighthouse. And it still goes on. It still goes on because of the threat of the ocean rising and the storms being more severe. So I think this really kind of puts us in touch with the importance of wetlands, the importance of protecting our wetlands, surveying what we have, acquiring key pieces of property. Obviously, we can't buy everything, but what are key pieces of property? And how do you judge this piece of property versus that piece of property? What's more important to the sanctity of the island and going forward, So there's stuff spelled out for you on how you weigh those priorities. So that's what PEP is designed to do, along with the New York State Sea Grant. New York State Sea Grant also provides grant monies available for some of these types of projects. So they are funded through various sources. So obviously, if we need additional monies and we have a good project that makes sense, then we need to sell them on it, Any other questions or comments?
sort of related, but on a little bit of a different note. I had heard from Greg Rivera about the reseeding the clams, and we're going forward with that. You think it's time to bring the Cornell Cooperative back in and get an update on where we are with the project we funded?
You can reach out to Kate.
Yeah.
And are they hand in hand with this? Cornell?
Well, they're Cornell Extension is part of PEP as well.
Right.
One of the 88
One of the
organizations.
88, yes, they are one of the 88. I mean, it's not like PEP dominates any one of those 88 things,
Right.
but they're all bits and pieces of the group. And when they have one of these meetings on Zoom, there might be 50, 60 people on there.
Okay.
You know, I mean, there's quite
Yeah.
a few people that zoom in on these meetings. But thank God we had them. And it's just one of less than 3 dozen national estuaries throughout the United States. And, you know, the funding is getting there. So some of these projects, and you saw the projects that they were working on, but a lot of it is science-based. A lot of it is gathering data. So the stuff at the South Ferry, that's all it's about: oxygen levels, water temperatures, sea rise levels, storm information. All that is being recorded every day, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, year after year, to be able to determine exactly what's going on here. And they're doing it throughout the estuary. So, but they have had a lot of good success stories. The fact that they have the Shinnecock Nation involved, I think is and they do attend. I sat next to the lady at the last meeting from the Shinnecock Nation, very articulate woman who was very, very good and came up with a lot of great ideas. You know, so this is our land, and you know, to the best of our ability, we have to learn how to protect it, you know, because we realize that the walls don't work. The building of, you know, just bulkhead after
bulkheading
bulkhead is not going to work.
Solve the problem.
Jim,
It's a temporary fix.
I mean, I publicly thanked Liz for her work. I want to publicly thank you for taking on the chairmanship of the East End Government Committee. And going forward, we're going to have to, number one, get a representative from Shelter Island.
Yeah.
And then your group's going to have to get a new government.
Yeah, well, that won't go to Shelter Island because that's located between the 6 entities. So, you know, it might be Brookhaven's turn or Southampton's turn. So it's a 2-year commitment. So 10 years from now, it'll be back to Shelter Island for sort of
We
representative.
will need a representative.
But you will need a representative to that. And I'm not, you know, depending on who gets in here and, you know, they want to continue, go off on my services to continue.
Right.
To work with that group. So I kind of really believe in what they do. And I think we have a good relationship with Joyce and company. So, yeah.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
Their maps are very cool, the interactive maps.
Oh, yeah, Chip, I mentioned that at the meeting, yeah.
Yeah, so I've been playing with them while Jim's been talking, because I was at the meeting. And, you know, they're rather interesting, you know, our preservation map, well, I'm on the computer, that's not logged into Zoom. But, you know, a lot of the land that we've already preserved is very high on the ranking scale.
Okay.
So, it's pretty neat, but it's definitely something that CPF should use as like another tool in their toolbox when it comes to evaluating properties for purchase.
Great.
I just walked the White property this morning. I will share the pictures I took at the entrance. It's absolutely gorgeous. Plantings that they put in there, they probably planted 60, 70 evergreens in the driveway going up. Driveway's all done, the catch basins are all in, the parking area is all established. And the gentleman, one of the family members, came out and introduced himself. We had a nice conversation. He's put a lot of those along the north side of the entrance, on his side, his house on the north side. But the house on the south side has the old evergreens that have been pruned up. And actually, you can see right in the backyard, you know, so he was trying to convince that neighbor to cut those down and put in the evergreens to get a better buffer. You know, in a couple of years, you'd have a nice old evergreen. And you would have some protection there. But as he said, as much as the road has been open, if one car comes in every other day, it's a lot.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, there's not
Not
this,
highly used
it's not
traffic.
Mashamba
Yeah.
2, that's for
Right.
sure, you know? That's not gonna happen.
Okay.
I would love to get sometime, either before the end of this year or early next year, the PhD that has been working in Bass Creek on studying for the last 17 years sea rise impacts on Bass Creek. And that would be an interesting
be
thing
interesting,
to listen to,
Yeah.
and how the creek is adapted. She measures everything, and they spend days here, you know, with 3 or 4 people in the water taking measurements on everything. I think that would be very interesting to have, because
That'd be nice for a Friday night dialogue.
it's a nice, 17 years worth of data.
Yeah.
You know, which is great.
Great, thank you very much. Next on the agenda, we have a couple of WQI rebate applications. Meg did.
Meg's going. We have a report on both applications, on each application from the WQI committee.
Yep.
So what's first on the
And then Galley.
Galley is first. Okay, so Galley. The recommendation is to fund $21,000. That's first. Second, set aside funding amount, but hold conditional rebate agreement until provisions below our list are satisfied. Let's see. Set aside $5,000 in the event it is determined that a pressurized shallow drain field will be utilized. So I think this is a slight difference
Yes.
process with the WQI, whereas before it was like you approve the basic grant, and then in the building of it, in the further engineering of the project, it then is discovered you need a pressurized shallow drain field, or you need to move the well, both of which are eligible for funds, but meanwhile you haven't encumbered them.
So we're approving up to 21,000.
Up to exactly that,
Okay.
up to 21,000, and that would include the base grant of 12, 5,000 pressurized shallow drain field if needed, well replacement set aside again if needed, and so that's your total of 21,000. So that's the Galley. I won't go into any more details about the nitrogen saved and all of that.
It's a Fuji 5 there, right? It's a Fuji 5.
All those details,
So that's the new way they're doing it now.
Yeah.
It used to be,
It's
okay.
also a 1956 house, so the house has been around a while,
Yeah.
And it's a voluntary, ask here.
oh, yeah. So then I'll just move on to Canada. WQI recommends the town board issue a conditional rebate agreement to fund the project at 17,000. So that's the base grant and the pressurized shallow drain field incentive or / need. That's different. Let me just see. This one form is new, right? So that's why I'm stumbling around here a bit.
Yeah, this home construction is 1940.
Right,
It's voluntary,
yeah,
and it's a Fuji clean system.
yeah. And the idea, it's a larger home with 5 bedrooms.
Yes.
And potential for greater occupancy in the future. And the property is located in the near shore overlay abutting West Neck Creek. So again, nitrogen, reduce the flow of nitrogen into tidal wetlands. So there we go.
We're gonna vote on those tonight.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Yep.
Okay, that's it on the actual, Captain Podieska likes to come back in.
Meg? Okay. Thanks. Catherine, can you, are we at board member reports?
Yes.
You're gonna start on it. Just gonna.
Yeah, you gotta do something.
No, I was just wondering, is she coming back? Okay.
Yeah, she just-
But I'll wait, yeah,
Open the door.
great, thanks. Get a good picture?
There you go. I'm up.
Okay, Meg, want to start us off?
No, someone else, I'm not ready.
Jim?
Yeah, tomorrow night, we're meeting here at 5:30 in this room for our subcommittee tree cutting with Tim and company. So we'll meet tomorrow. That'll be our second meeting. Hopefully we'll start to put together some nuts and bolts on some recommendations and maybe 2 more meetings, throughout November. Maybe we can get something to you, the town board. I thought before Thanksgiving, but that's not going to happen, hopefully before Christmas. If it doesn't, it'll go into next year, but we want to start to get some stuff on paper. First meeting was a lot of discussion about the need to do something and put out a lot of different ideas. But I would like to maybe limit it initially and let's just get, I'm more concerned about reconstruction and doing the right thing and inspecting the property before anybody starts digging anything. in terms of what kinds of trees we are protecting. It's not, I'm not for, and I don't think anybody on this committee is for mass cutting, just going in, just cutting trees. That's not what we're going to recommend. And other than that, no, I have nothing.
Okay. BJ?
So there's been some discussion out in the public about the budget that we're proposing for 2024 and how it handles healthcare premiums for the employees of this town. So Amber worked up this spreadsheet just to make it clear. I mean, one of the most, insulting, demeaning accusations is that we have done this to buy votes, as opposed that we have done this because it is in fact, inarguably equitable, more equitable than the current system. So you can see column 1, a person making $26,000, now look at column 2, was paying $3,140. 26,000 paying $3,000 plus dollars
Just for an individual.
for an individual.
Right.
Go down to a person making $145,000. They pay, under the current system, the same amount.
Right.
In what world is that equitable? It just isn't.
Right.
So how do you, and then you could look over to family, same thing, family premium, the cost, $7,400 for a $26,000 person. For a $145,000 person, $7,400. So, Jerry, Shelby, I think Barbara, a few people were involved in trying to figure out an equitable way of doing this. And this is what we came up with. So 2% of your salary for everybody. So for an individual, 2% of your salary now becomes $520 for the person making $26,000, which is probably affordable on Shelter Island, if the rents weren't so high. But there it is, $520. But if you're making $145,000, you can afford to pay more, and this is a percentage of your salary. That's for the single. Then look over to for the family. It would be $1,000 for the $26,000 earner, as opposed to what it was before, $7,400. And yes, that's a bit significant, but it's significant in a way that's fair, equitable, and hopefully helps us retain the people who work here. I think we have employees who have turned down our health insurance and gone on to the exchange to get a lower tier. I think that has happened here because our premiums just weren't affordable. So anyway, and you can see it all the way down. And again, for the person making the more money, the savings are less than for the person on the lower end of the earning spectrum.
Right.
So, if that bought me a few write-ins, I'm going to be happy about that.
I was just going to say, by the way, the names you mentioned.
Yeah.
Nobody's running for office.
That's right.
Nobody's running for office.
And nobody has a dog in the race.
Yeah, I think a couple of things. One, this really came to our attention with all the interviews we've been doing for new jobs that, people ask about, the package and they just can't afford that. They just can't afford to work for us for that. The other thing is 28 years ago, when I was on the school board, we instituted the first buy-in from the teachers, and it was 15%. And it was that's when health insurance was just going through the roof.
Yeah.
And it still is, but just as BJ just said, one of the pluses of working for the town and towns or municipalities in the past was always one that, it's security of, a local job in your community, but also the benefits. And even though it didn't pay well, it didn't compete with, competing
sector,
businesses, it offered something. So I
Well, in
think,
this town especially,
Yeah.
it was one partner in a marriage or relationship would work like the devil to make the cash.
Right.
I mean, usually multiple jobs or multiple
Yeah.
shifts in the summer when the work is here. And the other person took the job that had the benefits, and in that way you could survive out here. That was kind of a common thing. And so, again, the salaries around, on Eastern Long Island private sector have gone up. It would be awfully hard for the town to compete with that, but you hope by offering a better benefits package, which again, is not nearly as good as it was as when, I started in 2001 in government service. But it's still, to make this little bit of change, it would cost, what did we estimate, 75,000?
75,000.
Cost, I, on a $12 million, I don't think, I think it's a good thing to do. Good for the town and good for the employees both.
Okay, good, thank you.
That's all I have.
That's all you have?
That's all I have.
Okay, Meg, you ready?
Well said, by the way, Jack.
All right, yeah, I'm ready, sure. So tomorrow at 2:00, we have a comp plan meeting with the Suffolk County Planning Commission to get some just preliminary feedback and advice on changes and recommendations that they would have for us and the current draft of our plan to improve it. We're kind of just going to early to get some feedback to make sure that we're touching all the points that they think are important, make sure that we're including things that they want to see. So it's really just, it's not like a formal presentation to them, but it's just to get feedback on how we're doing to date. Because it's been such a long process, we want to make sure that we're covering all the things that they think are important in this current revision, so that when we have the final and it goes back to them, they can say, yes, you took it all into account, it looks good. So yeah, that's the discussion we're having tomorrow with them. And then I have another ETIP meeting for the energy grant, that's tomorrow at 4. And then WQI is Thursday. I'm not on that committee, but I'm just going over my calendar, and those are the things.
And I think tomorrow we're doing a moratorium.
All right, and we have a meeting for the moratorium. I gotta put that in the. It looks like our next CPAC meeting is probably going to be on November 16th. I'm just waiting for final confirmation from everyone that they can make it. So I think Thursday, November 16th, and then Friday, the 17th, look like 2 days that people could make it. And then the next dates are possibly the 27th and I think it was the 30th. But those will be posted once I have confirmation. I'm just waiting.
CPAC is on the 16th, though, on Thursday?
Yeah.
Excellent.
Thursday, the 16th.
Do you have a time on that?
6:30. So I think that's gonna be the next date that we
All
can
right,
meet.
okay.
Other than that, just chugging along.
Okay. All right, the only other thing I have is I went over with Meg. Meg had made a timesheet of projects, where we are, what the schedule is, what's done. And I'm just gonna go down it quick. Electronic anchoring, we took care of that. Smoking on Taylor's Island, we took care of that. Shellfish legislation, I think we're gonna have one more meeting with the Bayman and then set that hearing.
Yeah, and then set the hearing.
Comprehensive plan secret declaration, I think we made the declaration. Okay, WQI funding to pay for water in the center is done.
Yep.
The Big Ram application will be done tonight. The Hogan dock will be done tonight. The next one
Maybe that one's not really.
was, I think they withdrew it.
They withdrew the
All right,
application. yes.
moratorium exemption we handled. Assessor's office, we're in the process of hiring someone there. CPF acquisition plan, what is the status of that?
Oh, the status of that, it's on hold. I have sort of been spending my time
Been
on.
all of 5 years now.
I know, see, that's the problem. But, yeah, no, I also, oh, I know, and I was waiting for a map, which I do have now. So, there was that. And I think it should next come to the town board, probably in November sometime.
Okay.
Maybe mid to late November.
Okay, so it's moving along. Okay, Cornell Cooperative Extension Project, we just said, we'll ask them to come in for an update. I had a question mark on this one. New York State senior exemption with the assessors.
Right.
Yeah, she came in and did the presentation, but I can't remember if we made a decision. I feel like we still had some time.
Okay,
And so it wasn't rushed, but we do need to make a decision on how we're going to, there was a change in the calculation of the senior exemption.
Right, right.
And the way it was
Do
calculated.
we want to increase the maximum allowed income. Isn't that the question, I think?
It uses
Yeah.
401ks and things like
Yeah.
that, so we
That's
have
so we
to
need
go
to,
over it
yeah.
Yeah.
and
So
figure out.
that's.
So maybe we could get it on the work session
Yeah.
for next week?
Yeah.
It seems
Yeah.
pretty late, and if we need more answers from Judith, or she wants to send us a summary, if she doesn't want to spare the time to come.
Okay. And next with the public hearing for SEQR and the comprehensive plan, that's, gonna
Those will
be-
start probably
Yes.
sometime at the end of December,
Yep.
early January.
Okay,
February.
Jim mentioned the tree clearing, working group, irrigation code. I know the WAC has been talking about it. I had kind of thrown out there that I'd like them to look at, sunsetting the, irrigation,
Yeah.
grandfathered irrigation, which was supposed to be done in 2013. So maybe we just find out from the WAC exactly, are they
There-
waiting for us? Are we waiting for them? Or-
Well, I think there was also supposed to be like a subcommittee working on that, but I don't think they've actually met yet.
Okay.
But I did take the irrigation code and did a whole redlining on it, so I'll send it to everyone. You can
Okay.
See what I did.
Great.
I have to read through it again, but.
Okay. Then the moratorium, we're meeting tomorrow. Housing, Liz gave us an update today. And then charging stations, we did put, we connected to the building department in the back. So we have 2 units for the town vehicles. We have the one public one. I don't know that we'll go for any more public ones right now, but
I think it's in the comp plan, there's some recommendation for that.
We had to look for locations.
Yeah.
I mean, one of the locations we had was at the recycling center, which I don't know how practical that is.
Yeah, you're not gonna leave your
Because, I
car
mean,
there.
how long do you
Yeah,
spend?
right.
Right.
Shamik has them.
Mashamick has them.
Yeah, but some of the fast chargers now, you can get a 20 minutes worth. So, you go, you do your dumb thing, read a book for 20 minutes. I mean, for people who have electric cars, it is, feel dicey out here, which is.
I think what we have to try to,
Right.
I think in the future, what they're gonna have to do is, I know with the one by the police station, people plug it in and leave it.
Yeah,
Right.
And they, so the car can be charged, but it's plugged in all day. And that's not,
It may be good to do something like at the Legion area, because that's more transient, or, I mean, the library.
library's going to do it, so that'll be
Yeah, I
one
think
too.
The center here is probably the best view
Yeah.
of it, because you can leave your car, walk someplace, go to the library for a few hours, read, do something, go
Yeah.
to a basketball game, or, go play some tennis, come out, your car's recharged.
I know that we had talked about putting them at the ferries, but with such consistent flooding.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
It's not practical.
No, it's not.
Parking, you gotta think about it. If people
Yeah.
do what you're saying, you don't wanna you wouldn't put one on Bridge Street.
Yeah, leave the car, yeah.
And the parking at the ferries is becoming more and more
Yeah.
difficult,
Yes, it is, yeah.
so.
Yeah.
So Meg, that's all that we had on the initial list. I don't know if we're
Yeah, well,
missing.
the other things I had on there are just like the ongoing water testing, so we're just waiting on the results. Hopefully we'll have it next week. There were just a few stragglers that were it was more complicated to get them scheduled, and then we're just waiting for the lab. So hopefully next week we should have the water test results from the center. I think that was the last thing I had on here. But, we should probably add like code revisions.
Yeah,
So, wetlands code, like the 129, the glitch in 133, just the poorly written 133.12, I think it is. There's a few code things that we can look at.
okay.
Mhm.
BJ, you have anything else? Jim, anything else?
No, sir.
Okay. Okay,
I know
that's
what
all.
the status is next door without,
Yes,
When it's ready to-
what's today, Tuesday? Today, PSEG is disconnecting the electric.
Okay.
So once that's done, we can go over.
Okay.
Get it in.
all right.
Okay. Okay, that's all I have. Anybody in the audience? Jan, you have anything? Anybody in the Zoom audience have anything? Amber, did you have anything? I don't know how you're feeling.
You mute.
You're on mute.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep.
All right, I'm definitely on slow today. But what I wanted to bring up is one last ditch effort in trying to convince any of you to change your mind on Prager. I sent an email earlier, but I don't know if you got it. Jerry, last week you commented about fear of losing litigation and wasting taxpayer money. So going with the direction that you thought that would be in the best place to win. So my response to that, after thinking about it some more, is that's not the right way to make a decision, fear of litigation. There's a group of taxpayers asking us to go to bat for them and take the risk. They know that there's a cost to litigation, but don't think that it's a waste of money. Also, wouldn't any potential litigation be covered either by our town attorney or by the insurance company? And then my second point is if we don't start building up a precedent of voting no, we're never going to win in court. So we have to start somewhere. And because this is an often used town landing, it's a good one to start with, and it's not like others. So that's my plea.
Okay. Okay,
Did I sway anybody?
you'll find out tonight.
No, but I have to, that means that you're going to make me attend the meeting. I'll have to do so by Zoom.
Yeah, that's all right. Yeah,
Don't forget, if you're participating in the meeting, you have to stay visible.
Yes.
Just make it, yeah, I'm a stickler. I want to keep that Zoom privilege.
hope you feel better, Amber.
Yeah, I do too.
Better.
Thanks.
Pam?
Yeah, hi, good afternoon. I just have a question preceding tonight's meeting as well on the resolution for the big Ram dock. A few suggestions on some revisions to that. I did redline the document and I can send it to you prior to the meeting. I realize it's 30 now, but maybe that'll help us go through it when the meeting
Hearing's
begins
closed.
tonight.
Public hearing's closed.
It's
Well, the
not
hearing
about
is-
the public hearing, it's about the resolution. It's not about the hearing, it's about the resolution to discuss the
You
resolution.
can speak, at the beginning of the meeting, you can speak to it, Pam.
Stephen, what should?
Yeah.
No, no,
I mean,
no,
I'm
no,
just
you're not
asking if you'd
supposed
like me
listen.
to, if, I'm sorry, let me, Mr. Supervisor, I just wonder if you want me to send you what I would be asking you later prior to
No,
the meeting, that's all.
The town board should not be taking any comments regarding this application, whether it's
Not the
procedural,
application.
But
whether it's
Stephen, the point
substantive.
is, if Pam's gonna speak to it in the beginning when we talk to resolutions,
No. The resolutions that they can speak to are your normal plain vanilla resolutions, not in connection with approvals in connection with public hearings. The public hearing is closed. You should not be taking into account any comments regarding those applications.
I'm sorry, I know that I had the opportunity to speak on the Rams Head Inn resolution when it was written up, and I got some comments changed and some dates that were incorrect corrected. I don't understand. I've never heard this before. This is news to me. I mean, I'm not making a comment on the application. I'm making a comment on the resolution. And I
The
see language in
resolution
here that
has
I'd
to,
like to-
the resolution deals with the substance of the application. Shouldn't be talking about it.
But the public hearing is going to be open to
Public-
discuss the
No,
resolution. at the-
no. The public
Mr.
hearing
Kelly,
is
let me
closed.
address the
Public hearing-
supervisor.
the public
Let me
hearing is
address the
yelling.
supervisor.
Pam,
I-
stop yelling at
Pam,
us.
I'm responding
sorry,
to
but, you know,
BJ who asked me to chime in on this. So I'm responding to a town board member who asked me to chime in on this. So
Thank
it's my
you.
recommendation and my counsel that the town board do not take any of your comments into account about an application that was closed.
right,
Now-
I'm a little confused because, and I think we already had this discussion, Stephen. At the beginning of the town board meetings, I start with, if anybody has any comments on resolutions that we're going to vote on, now is the time to do it. So I
Yes,
don't know,
it's read,
Pam couldn't speak to that.
because again, all resolutions are not created equal. There's certain resolutions that are not born of a public hearing. There's other resolutions that are born of a public hearing. Those are born of a public hearing. You cannot take in comment, because again, the public comment period is closed. So they should not be able to try to persuade you after the public hearing is closed. So you should not, but plain vanilla resolutions that have nothing to do with the public hearing, yes, they can comment.
Where there were no public hearings, yes.
Right. I understand what I don't agree with it, but I understand what you're saying.
The difference, you understand, yeah.
Just,
I have
Pam,
to-
as a point of clarification, have you seen the resolution for that dock application? And does it contain in the existing resolutions that, as it now is written, does it address some of your concerns?
It,
Without going
addresses-
in. Okay.
well, I just think, I think that part of it, I'll just say this right now, part of it, there are two comments that are at the very beginning describing the project that I think should be part of the conditions and not, it's not the description of the project. Which, for instance, is the removal of the debris and replanting of the bluff. I mean, it's these things. I'm talking about the resolution itself. It's not anything to do with the project. It's just the resolution. It doesn't exactly match, just taking out the catwalk of the plans doesn't address the upper landing that says is existing, that's not up at the top of the bluff. It doesn't address the lower landing that was also part of this project that's still on those plans. So there's just a few things that physically, I think, just need to be addressed in the resolution that aren't, as well as those two things being changed as conditions and not part of the project.
If you take these comments into account, due process requires you to also listen to the applicant to respond to these. So that's why you shouldn't be taking any of her comments into account.
Thank you.
Doesn't make any sense.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, I just had one more thing on Prager. When I read the resolution, it said 75% if Mother Nature knocks it out. I'd like to lower that to greater than 50%.
Yeah, I would agree, 51% or greater.
I think that's more standard.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's more standard, like when you do a major renovation.
Change the,
50%, yeah.
Greater than 50%.
Okay, anybody else? Stephen, do you have anything else?
No, Mr. Supervisor.
Amber, you have anything for us? No? Okay. Anybody else in the Zoom audience?
Julie?
Can't see.
Question for Stephen. The memo that he sent out about those committees that don't have to have an in-person quorum don't list, obviously, the town board. So I'm wondering if Amber can participate, but do I assume correctly that she would not have a vote tonight?
No,
No,
she's
no.
sick, so she has a legitimate reason not to physically be here, but as BJ mentioned, during the meeting, she has
Be
to
visible.
be visible the whole time.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just home.
The verbiage is extraordinary circumstances, and this is the town board deemed sickness an extraordinary circumstance to be able to fully participate via video conference.
Yeah, I'm home with the flu. So far, not testing positive for COVID. So fingers crossed.
Yeah, keep it that way. Okay. Okay, if there's nobody else, any other comments, last chance? Okay, I'm gonna make a motion. We go into executive session to hopefully finalize the contract negotiations and to talk about employment history.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, we do have a town board meeting tonight.